All right, here we go. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Reyes Reflection Podcast. I need to get this off my chest. I saw something that said that Jack Harlow is the best white rapper out there. And y'all must have forgot about Eminem. And I get it. You're all on this train because he's a young, good-looking dude. But y'all just need to shut up because Eminem is a legend. And Jack Harlow will never be on that level, not in this lifetime, not in any lifetime. I had to get that off my chest because I saw something and it really bothered me. I end my rant. Now we are going to start an episode off that we have never done before. We're kind of shifting away a little bit. We're always going to go back, but right now we're going to start a little different segment. And right now today you are going to hear the breakdown of the new Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I am lucky to have a savant in film breakdowns. I normally would have guests come on, and they would kind of talk about the backstory of their lives and all that stuff, and I couldn't do that with this guest because there's a lot of things that I've done that I don't want publicly admitted yet. But without further ado, please welcome Gabriel Reyes. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. One question.
What's up?
Who is Jack Harlow?
He is a rapper. You really don't know who he is?
I am not the most versed in modern day music.
Yeah, not that good. Only has one or two decent songs. A lot of people think he's better than Eminem, and I'm not on that train. That's what it is. That, you know what I mean? It's like one's a legend, one's a newcomer, but everyone's in the moment type of deal. That's where I'm at. That's why I felt so passionate about it, because it's just one of those things where I'm like, the guy has one or two decent songs and the rest sound the same, you know?
I get it. You can't compare someone's first NBA season with Michael Jordan's career.
Yeah, exactly. So, as stated, we are going to break down the Doctor Strange movie, which took 6 years to make a part 2. In the meantime, there was a trilogy of Tom Holland's Spider-Man that they were able to do. Yeah, if you think about it, yeah, I know. I could see it in your face. You're like, whoa, that actually happened. Yeah. Yep. And Endgame and Infinity War. So all that took place. But anyways, nonetheless, for some of you people who have not seen it, we want to let you know that there are going to be spoilers. So we're going to try to do our best to do a 3 to 5 minute segment, maybe longer, we don't know, we'll see, of not spoiling it for you. And then afterwards, we're going to go right into the trenches of discussing scene by scene of the film, break down our thoughts, our opinions. So if you have not watched it, please come back later. I don't want to ruin it for you because I don't want to be that dick that just ruins those things for you. So, Gabriel, why don't we get the ball rolling on a short summary for the people who have not seen the film?
Of course. So, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is the 2022 sequel to the, what was it, 2016 sequel to Doctor Strange. And it is also a continuation of the Disney Plus series WandaVision.
Yeah, were you a fan of that?
I was a big fan of WandaVision.
Is that your is that your favorite is that your favorite Marvel show that they've come out with thus far?
Out of the Disney Plus series, I would say that WandaVision is like A tier. I wouldn't say it's S tier, but it's A tier.
Okay.
I don't know that they've had an S tier one yet. But it also draws heavily from the What If animated series, it appears, which it was kind of nice to see them acknowledged a little bit, even if they didn't go too heavily into it. And in terms of a spoiler-free review, I would say that that's maybe my first sort of like non-spoiler sort of note. I personally felt like there weren't too many connections to the outside Marvel Cinematic Universe. I felt like it was a very self-contained story. I felt, which,
Agreed.
you know, if you don't want to have to watch 20-something odd films, 5+ Disney Plus series, if you just want to watch the first Doctor Strange movie and then this one back to back as sort of like a double feature, you might be able to enjoy it. I think you need to have a little bit of know-how, but I feel like this could be accessible to the casual Marvel viewer who maybe doesn't watch every single movie the day it comes out like we do.
Yeah, I got to be honest. When I wasn't into Doctor Strange actually until I saw how badass he looked in Infinity War. I did not see the first Doctor Strange. I did see it afterwards, but I was like, oh my gosh, this dude's a great badass. And so I got really excited about it, and I was super excited for this one for multiple reasons. Elizabeth Olsen, I mean, she is a bright spot in a dark universe. So yeah, I agree with you. I thought that they did first of all, I thought you did a good summary. They did a very good job at kind of callbacks, but not really spoiling or not really. I don't know. You're right. I think they did a good job at kind of going in their own lane, which I know a lot of people are not fans of. I know a lot of people love the fact of in the MCU you were able to interconnect the 20-somewhat stories, but I think they're kind of going in a new generation, which for us who innocently turned on Iron Man in 2008 did not know 25 films, 5 TV series later, or whatever, how many it is, that we were going to be so embedded into this universe of fandom and of fantasy. And a lot of people love it. A lot of people don't. I've also read reviews about people saying it's too demonic. I've seen that too, which it was going to be a rated R film, by the way. And that's not me just saying that. I believe I read several reports that it was supposed to be a horror film. And for the people who don't know, it kind of gives off that vibe, a little bit more gore than your typical Marvel movie, but we will get into it now. So film opens up, Doctor Strange sporting a sick-ass haircut. I've never seen him look like that. And a unnamed female character running from a demon.
Yeah, it was like it was almost like it reminded me, speaking of sort of like horror, it kind of reminded me of sorry, this is also gonna become a slight spoiler for the 2017 It movie, if you haven't seen that. But like almost like
at this point, movies that are over 3 years old, we're not spoiling. You had plenty of time amidst the pandemic. I understand that, but you had plenty of time.
Okay, so it almost reminded me of like the mummy sort of figure that attacks one of the kids in like the climactic like scene. But yeah, it almost looked like it was made out of like pieces of mummy tissue. Like it was like grasping at I believe like the trades were calling it like Defender Strange. Is this like variant of Doctor Strange? And yes, as he mentioned, an unmentioned female character. And they make it very clear early on that she is the one that this monster is after.
Correct.
That she has some sort of power that the monster wants.
Yeah, the monster wants to obtain, and they're running towards some sort of book or something like that, and the monster is aware enough to understand that he does not want them to go. They're very clear trying to get this book. The monster knows it, so, and then the powers.
So, what is eventually we learn to become is called the Book of Ashanti. Yes, Defender Strange and America Chavez, who we find out is the girl's name, is trying to get to this book so that they can take the monster. And as they are possibly about to get to it, Defender Strange has a sort of epiphany that, she doesn't know how to control her powers, which we find out is to punch barriers through the multiverse and to travel different multiverses.
It like creates a portal into another universe.
Yeah, star-shaped portal, which I have in my notes here. Her power set is absolutely beautiful in the film. I love the star effect that they have.
Yeah, I think that was really cool too. I agree.
And so Defender Strange realizes that, she's not going to be able to find out how to control her powers. So he starts to take her powers from her, even though she's like, it's going to kill me. This Defender Strange is similar to the cold one that we're used to from the MCU, because the MCU one is pretty darn cold. However, this one is like
a lot
even
of ego.
more so.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So this one, which honestly makes sense considering that both are doctors, and doctors have to kind of have that like mindset of turning the emotional switch off when they're
for the betterment of others. Yeah, that's a nice little emotional touch. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this sort of this is a great way of creating tension between America Chavez and what will eventually be the MCU version of Doctor Strange, because now she has a reason not to trust Stephen Strange.
Correct. So she opens up the portal. She's going through, as you said, as Defender Strange was trying to ward off and fight off this demon. He ends up getting impaled, and he's very close to death. But in the final moments of that life of Defender Strange, he gets pulled into the portal, and he's still alive, presumably. So now the film opens up to the current Stephen Strange that we know in the MCU on Earth 616. He thought it was a nightmare. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, he thought it was a nightmare, and he's kind of discombobulated because here comes the bride. He's going to a wedding.
All dressed in white. Yes, the wedding of his former love interest from the first Doctor Strange film, Christine Palmer.
Played by Rachel McAdams or Regina George to some other folks. That's how I identify her as. Or from The Notebook.
On Wednesdays, we wear pink. For those of you who don't know, Mean Girls is my spirit film.
All right, so he's going to the wedding. Pans out to this watch with a broken clock face, but he still holds on to it. Clearly, that watch is going to have some sort of meaning down the line. It kind of is symbolic of that in some way. It doesn't tell you why, but it shows it. He gets up, a little discombobulated from his nightmare, and now he's going to this wedding. He's at the wedding, and then what happens at the wedding?
At the wedding, he is first sort of met with a doctor that he was sort of rival doctors with in the first film, Dr. West, played by Michael Stolberg. I'm probably mispronouncing that. I actually know this actor from Men in Black 3, and that is the only film I've seen him in, besides the first Doctor Strange film. Anyway, so they have a sort of conversation that, like I said, this is the first sort of nod to the overall MCU, but like I said, it isn't as prominent as it has been in recent films where they mention the blip. They mention that that I believe, I can't tell if both were blipped, but anyway.
I believe they were. They were, because he said when he woke up, he lost his cats, or when he came back. So I believe you're right.
Yes, and didn't he mention like I lost my cats and my brother or something like that?
But his brother was more of like a in passing type of loss, whereas he clearly was mourning the cats more than his brother at that point in time.
So the wedding goes off with like out a hitch. The vows are spoken, and then
but the whole time Stephen is distraught. Rachel McAdams' character. Is it Christine? Is that her name?
Christine Palmer. Yeah, Dr. Christine Palmer.
So Christine lets him know that her new husband is a huge fan of his and that he wants to have a picture with him. But then Stephen hears a noise outside.
Before we get into that, I do want to mention that there is this is the first scene that starts a recurring question throughout the film, which is Christine. At one point, Doctor Strange, I believe, asks Christine, "Are you happy?" And then she looks back at him. She's like, "Are you happy?"
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that is, I feel, sort of frequent. That ends up being frequently brought up. The "Are you happy?"
And I'm actually glad that before we moved on, I'm glad that you brought that up because she says a phrase of "You always had to be the one holding the knife," What the hell does that mean? Do you know what does that mean? He always has to be in control.
Yes, in
Okay.
terms of like because
I feel like they could have said it a little better. That's just me.
I get what you're saying. That's a very medical sort of like medical heavy what's the word?
Because he's a surgeon.
Yeah, that's a very sort of like that's like a medical simile that like maybe surgeons would understand better. But yeah, and that does become sort of a reoccurring like, oh, you had to be the one holding the scalpel. And so yes, then they hear a commotion, and then in the slickest transition from street clothes
It
to
was awesome.
superhero
It was
outfits,
awesome.
he manifests his cloak out of thin air and like twirls it around and leaps off
Yeah,
of
that was so
the
sick.
building.
Yeah.
And then of course Christine is watching him leave, and she kind of has a look of like
Fear.
fear, but also I detected a little bit of sadness, like there he goes again. And granted, it could just be sadness of crap. This is how my wedding day, this is how my wedding day is ending.
Yep.
But yeah, so Doctor Strange notices that this young
Cars
girl,
are flying around. Bodies are being bumped all over the place, and then because at first he couldn't see,
yes,
but he does notice the one girl. You're right.
He notices the girl getting into the bus, and he notices that something is coming after the bus. And I think he almost like gets hit by an invisible. Sorry, he almost gets hit by an invisible force. And I think that's when he's like, okay, something's going on here. And he performs a spell, and you see it's almost like a tentacle-ish, like a Cthulhu-like monster with a single eyeball.
Yeah, like Cyclops looking, it's like a Cyclops octopus. I would say like kind of mesh
Hybrid.
blend. Yeah, hybrid. Also sick, badass to look at that thing. That thing was pretty sick too.
Yeah, it was in one thing that they eventually bring attention to is that there are runes glowing on its tentacles as if it's being controlled. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But so this begins the first sort of action scene of the movie, which I'll be honest, I felt like for an compared to the last MCU movie of being Spider-Man No Way Home, I sort of felt like this one didn't have as many big action scenes. I felt.
I agree. Not that many big action scenes. More plot and story than fighting in this film. Yeah, for sure.
Which, as a writer, I can appreciate, in terms of like the plot, the story, and so this begins an action sequence, which is the first sort of the action sequence ends with the first little bit of gore that you see in the film, which is Doctor Strange rips out the eyeball from the socket of that monster, and it looks really gross as it's falling.
It was graphic. It was graphic. They find out that it was, as you said, being controlled, and the runes. That's a call back to WandaVision and the runes in WandaVision. So there's one person who's in charge of that, and that would be Wanda Maximoff, again, played by the lovely Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah, and so before they come to the realization that they have to go to Wanda, they do speak with America, and that's when they learn that she has powers, that she's able to travel the multiverse. And this is where they also introduce the concept that when you're dreaming, you are seeing into yourself from another universe, part of the multiverse.
That's correct, because they find out that that dream that Doctor Strange had was actually real in a different universe. And again, the one with he had slick back hair, was pretty cool. Like a half up, half down type of look, man bun. That was real. And so he experienced that. And they find the corpse, and then Doctor Strange buries it. As you said, then they transition into going to look for Wanda.
Actually, sorry, I'm gonna bring up one more thing before.
All right, go ahead.
They also do, like I said, as Nathaniel mentioned, there were sort of like quick mentions to other films. This is when they do make that very funny joke about, I recently had a run-in with Spider-Man about the multiverse, and because the ending of that film, spoiler for that film as well, at the end of the movie, Doctor Strange erases basically the identity of Peter Parker from everyone's memories. So Doctor Strange no longer knows who Spider-Man is, but
he knows there is a Spider-Man, he just doesn't know who he is.
Yes, and also America Chavez makes the funny joke of, does he shoot webs out of his butt?
Yeah, like a real spider. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so they go to find Wanda Maximoff, and she is no longer at that sort of cottage that she was at the end of WandaVision. She's now in an apple orchard, tending to the trees, when she is sort of approached by Doctor Strange, and she asks, is this about Westview? Is this about what I did? And he says, no, because at the end of the day, I knew you would do the right thing. And he mentions that this is the opportunity. If he helps her with this, he explains the situation without going into too great a detail. And he says, if you help me with this girl, it could get you back on the lunchbox. He goes, it could be the start of your redemption story. And she mentions, why don't you bring America here and I'll help her? And this was I don't know if Nathaniel knows this trope. This was the I never said it was poison trope, which is when a character reveals that they know more than what they're letting on by revealing a detail that the person never mentioned. And
because she said, you never said the name, did you? And he said no. And at that point, this illusion of a good life that she's portraying, she quickly eliminates, and she's showing Doctor Strange that she actually is in possession of the Darkhold.
The Darkhold, which was the book that was originally possessed by Agatha Harkness in the WandaVision series. Now Wanda has been corrupted by the Darkhold, and she tells him, because he told her where they were keeping America, and she says, I'm going to be coming there in later today. You will be surrendering her to me, and if not, you will meet the Scarlet Witch.
Which I think that was another way of saying you will meet this bitch. I think that was like her way of trying to say that. But I don't know. Obviously, they were trying to introduce the character, but people associate witch, bitch. They associate like it's the same thing. And the way she said it, it was like, you're gonna meet this. Yeah.
It was very much a bitch. Try me. That's what
yeah, very much so. She gave off that vibe. Yep, absolutely. So they Maximoff then attacks the Kamartaj. Is that what it's called?
Kamartaj. Yeah, that's where they train sort of the future sorcerers. And what I love is that at first she tries to attack, and everyone has force fields.
Yeah.
And then in a callback to the sort of her first big appearance in Avengers: Age of Ultron, she notices one member seems to be a little bit more frightened than the other ones, and you see her like appear behind him, and she like leans into his ear and she goes, "Run," and he freaks out. He bumps into everyone, and that's what causes the field
her to be able to penetrate that shield and that force field.
Yeah, and she just goes ham on these sorcerers, just killing a bunch of them. And this is your first look at, okay, this is villain Wanda Maximoff. This is not even Wanda Maximoff. This is the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, for sure. So then Doctor Strange puts her in this little dimension in which she's hidden. She eventually escapes. and again goes to try to get America, realizing America is now frightened. All of a sudden, America and Doctor Strange are taking that star portal that she does, reappears, and they go away, leaving Wong behind.
Yeah, and before we during the sequence, Doctor Strange, as you mentioned, he traps her in the mirror dimension, and she is able to escape through reflections. And in another sort of like I mentioned, this, as Nathanael mentioned, this movie borrows a lot from horror, and almost very similar to I know I mentioned it before, but the It movie, during the scene where Pennywise is leaving the refrigerator and he's almost like a contortionist and he's fixing his limbs.
Oh, she did do that. You're right.
As she's reaching out of the gong, you see her like fixing her limbs, and it looks horrific, but also awesome.
Yeah, she did do that. You're right. I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah, and so as you mentioned, Wong gets left behind, which means that he is now at the mercy of the Scarlet Witch. But they travel to Earth. What was it? 838.
838. Yep.
Yeah, they travel. Well, they actually travel through a variety of multiverses,
like 40 different multiverses.
Yeah, one where they're paint, one where they are sort of like where they're cut up into cubes. That looked gnarly.
That one was gnarly. Animated. They were animated in another one.
Yeah. Like comic book style. Yeah, that was a fun one.
That was a cool one.
And so they
but it's a quick montage.
Yeah, it only it granted, as you mentioned, they go through about like 40 multiverses, but it's within a span of like a minute.
Yeah.
So they only get like
maybe even less than that, to be honest. Yeah.
It like each one is only focused on for like a second or so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so they land on Earth 838. They decide that they need to find this universe's Doctor Strange.
Yep. Yeah. And earlier, at this one, they find out that there is no other America, and it's because she's looked in every single universe, and she's the only one. So she's the only one that has this power. She's the only one that can do this. So, but you're right. They're looking for the Doctor Strange of this universe.
Yeah, and it reminds me when he mentions, how do you know that there isn't another America Chavez? She mentions this, and then she kind of ends it with, and there's the fact that I never dream. And so this is, again, kind of hitting home the sort of the idea that a dream is what causes, like, that when you dream, it's what causes you to see older multiverses. And this is actually a great time to bring up the motivation of the Scarlet Witch. The reason she has become so dark is because in her dreams, she sees Billy and Tommy, which she created in Westview in WandaVision, but she now knows that there are versions of them out there. And honestly, I'm actually, I know that this is breaking away from the review format, but I'm excited for when Tommy and Billy make their appearance in the MCU proper as Wiccan and Speed, because not only are they awesome characters, but they're also great representation, because Billy Wiccan is gay, and he's a member of one of the most famous LGBTQ couples with Hulkling, and then Tommy is bisexual. So in America, Chavez is also supposed to be lesbian in the comics.
Well, I was just about to bring up, as they're walking in this Earth, they go through this memory portal there, where you can step on, you can pay a fee, and they step on it, and they find the fact that that she has memories of her lesbian mothers, who, out of fear because she saw a bee, extracted out of that universe into a different universe. And they also showed Doctor Strange one, and this is where that watch becomes so prominent, because Christine gave it to him when he graduated school. So, and that was shown in the memory, and in this sequence, sequence of events, you also see America loves pizza. She still finds pizza in every universe. And what is it? Bruce Campbell, is that his name?
Yeah, Bruce Campbell. He's a frequent Sam Raimi sort of collaborator.
Yeah, he is. He is. Sam Raimi also did all the Spider-Mans, the original ones, my OG Spider-Mans. That's what I remember with Tobey Maguire. So, yep, absolutely really cool callback type of deal. So at this point in time, Doctor Strange is starting to notice that she can operate this on fear. He gets a hint to that. They find the
Sanctum.
The Sanctum Sanctorum, yeah.
The Sanctum Sanctorum in the 838 universe. However, another thing that I sort of like the writer in me, I love I'm trying to think the word, the consistency that in every universe, Carl Mordo.
Yeah.
Carl Mordo in this universe, multiverse, still portrayed by, unfortunately, I can't pronounce the actor's name.
It's a Chiwetel Ejiofor or something. I butchered that big time. I'm sorry. I respect your work. I think you do a great job.
Yeah, I first saw him in the movie Four Brothers, and he continues to be just a phenomenal actor to this day.
Yeah, he's amazing. So we respect your work. Sorry we butcher your name, but you are a treasure in that business. So thank you.
And so I know that you had mentioned it was originally supposed to be R, the rated R.
Correct.
We were supposed to have already seen Mordo from our Earth because he never shows up on Earth 616, which is the MCU, and the movie establishes is the MCU Earth. The reason why he is shown so little is because in the original draft, Scarlet Witch goes to him to try to find out how to get to Stephen Strange, and when he doesn't give her the information that she needs, she decapitates him. That's one of the scenes that they cut because it was supposed to be a very bloody, gory movie.
Well, I read something that Sam Raimi said that it was supposed to be a lot longer of a film too. It was supposed to be close to 3 hours.
Yeah,
and they
cut an extra 40 minutes or so.
And they cut so much of the film out, so that wouldn't surprise me. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
While that's happening, he goes in the Sanctum Sanctorum, and then it shows what Wanda's up to, and she is what they call, what is it?
Dreamcasting.
Dream walking.
Or dream walk. For some reason I'm thinking dreamcasting. But yeah, no, it's and so what you can do is, due to the Darkhold, you can perform a ceremony where you can then possess
your counterpart in another universe.
Yeah, and so she finds the Wanda from Earth 838, which still has Billy and Tommy, and
still no Vision, just Billy and Tommy.
Yeah, and and sort of one of the problems that I had with this movie is that poor Vision got no love. They mention him once or twice, but I'll mention it in sort of when we break down more of the characters. But yeah, Vision is nowhere to be seen in this film.
Yeah. So she's dream walking, and then one of the sorcerers who survived the ambush by the Scarlet Witch goes ahead and destroys the book. In doing so, perishes, sacrifices her life to end this Darkhold. Wanda's fucking pissed at this point. I mean, she loses it. She then takes Wong, and they have to go up Mount
Wondergore.
Well, something. Wonderbread. I don't know. Something.
Mount Wondergore. And so they travel to Mount Wondergore, and there is a shrine to the Scarlet Witch.
Mm-hmm.
And in this scene, she's able to recreate the sort of spell because the pages of the Darkhold are carved into the walls. So she's able to recreate it. And from there, Wong tells her, no, you can't do this. So she throws him off the cliff and seemingly kills him.
Mm-hmm.
I remember everyone in the theater was they were oh no, he's dead. Whereas I was they didn't show it.
I knew he wasn't dead. I knew he wasn't dead.
They didn't show it, so he's still alive. But while this was happening, Doctor Strange was drugged by Mordo, as was America, and they are brought to the Illuminati.
Which a lot of people a lot of people who are not comic book fans, that just average Marvel fans or fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Casual Marvel fans.
Casual Marvel fans, no disrespect to you, but didn't understand that reference. They laughed because they took it as
the actual what people consider the actual
exactly
Illuminati,
what we as Americans or as the world views as a Illuminati, which no, it's actually a very established group in the comic books of Marvel. So thought that was pretty interesting when I saw that. I could tell because when he mentioned the Illuminati, everyone just laughed. It was comical to them. They didn't understand that it was an actual established group.
And the Illuminati in the comic books are meant to they're established as the leaders of their fields. You have like the fields include like science, mutants, cosmic, mystics, that sort of deal. Earth. And so anyway, so in this, before he meets the Illuminati, he meets the Christine Palmer of Earth 838. And she seems very cold to him, but she seems kind of like she seems cold to him in the sense of you're not my Stephen Strange, but also like, but you are a Stephen Strange. So she does have that sense of like, yeah, I love you, and so basically she won't listen to him. But then she brings up a point of, you might have diseases that we've already cured or we don't have a cure for, and I'll bring the importance of that up later. And she basically says, so I'm not going to let you out no matter what you say. And he says, okay, well, just keep the girl safe. And I think that this is her sort of saying that, yeah, Doctor Strange can be selfless because he's not really caring about himself. He's just saying, no matter what you do, keep her safe.
Yeah. So then he gets taken by these Centennial bots.
They're Ultron variants.
Oh, are they?
They're
Okay.
Ultron variants, yeah.
That start walking him towards this Illuminati. As he's walking to the Illuminati, you see it's in this chamber, and he's being flippant, he's joking around, he's not taking it serious because he knows Wanda's coming. He knows it. At this time when he's expressing everything, it also shows Wanda in the
838 universe, yeah, gets possessed,
correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so now she's awakened, and she flies over because her and her kids were sleeping on the couch together. She is awakened, leaves the kids, and then flies over to go where they all are. So now I guess this would be the biggest scene of spoilers or of fan fandom, fan appreciation, I guess, or where this is where I heard the most pop in the theater, if I'm going to be honest. And
yeah, it garnered the most fan reaction.
Yeah, exactly. So
a lot of fan service.
Yep. So this group consisted of Mordo, which we already saw, Peggy Carter, but she's
Captain Carter.
Which
the concept of Captain Carter is introduced in the first episode of the What If animated series.
Yeah, badass, fucking sick. Blackagar Boltagon, is that the name?
Black Cigar Boltagon or something like that. Yeah, played by Anson Mount. Peggy Carter, of course, reprised by Haley Atwell. But yeah, also known as Black Bolt. He is the leader of the Inhumans, which was the subject of a failed television series in the MCU, but he's also reprised by Anson Mount. He played him in the television series, when he's introduced, he's very silent, very stoic, which you find out why he's silent. If you saw the TV series, you know why, but if you don't know him, you're like, oh, he's quiet.
Yeah, for a lot of people, they didn't really know. Was this some sort of Netflix show? Is that what happened here? Or?
No, it was on ABC.
Okay.
It was called Inhumans, and it was when ABC So so what Disney Plus series is now, for a while there, that was supposed to be what ABC shows were. So that's why ABC had Agents of Shield with the reprisal of Clark Gregg as uh, Agent Coulson, Phil Coulson.
Well, ABC is owned by Disney, so so that would make sense.
Yeah, and so basically, so this is where Black Bolt comes from. And if you can't tell by the tuning fork on his head, he has something to do with sound, which is why he's silent.
Maria Rambeau reprises and
Lashana Lynch or something like that.
Yep, and she is this universe's Captain Marvel. Not my Captain Marvel. Got to be honest with you. I'm a Brie Larson fan all the way. Nothing against her. Not my Captain Marvel.
She does a good job with the small material that she is given.
Yeah.
I would be honest, I would be open to seeing another version of this version of Captain Marvel.
I agree.
Maybe a little bit more to do.
I agree, but I'm a Brie Larson fan. I'll admit it. I'm a Brie Larson fan. I always loved the actress, love her as a person. So I think don't know her personally. Wish I did, but
her work in The Room was deserving of that Oscar.
Yeah,
that's all I'll say.
Yeah. Reed Richards, for you who don't know, who is the leader of the Fantastic Four,
Mr. Fantastic,
and played by Jim Halpert. Hello,
Mr. Bombastic.
Yeah,
himself, Jim Halpert.
Jim Halpert, John Krasinski, from Massachusetts, by the way, Reppin. There you go, Newton, I believe. He's on there, and that was a big pop because that fans have been wanting that. They've been clamoring for that.
That and sort of the next sort of showing is the biggest version of fan service, because as you mentioned, he has been fan cast as Mr. Fantastic so much, along with his beautiful wife Emily Blunt as Mrs. Fantastic Sue Storm,
who apparently turned down 3 or 4 roles of Marvel prior. They've always wanted to work with her.
Yeah, she was the original actress cast as Black Widow,
as well as we just talked about Haley Atwell's character. She was supposed to be her too. Captain Carter.
Yeah.
Peggy Carter. She was supposed to be her character too.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not working out.
And I read somewhere, I think Gamora as well. I could be wrong about that one, but I read something that said that too. So, and then this is where my heart was. I don't think it was as much for other people. Reason being is because you got to figure some of these people who watch this movie are maybe 10, 12 years old, so they didn't see all these movies growing up the way that I did. But Charles Xavier, leader of the X-Men, but he's not the leader of the X-Men in this. He's the leader of the Illuminati. They didn't hint X-Men.
Yeah, so from what I understand, even the film, when Kevin Feige was talking about it, was like, oh, mutants. So I think they might not lean into X-Men heavily, even when they introduce them. I think they're more going to be mutants. That's what they're sort of like focusing on. But yes, reprised by the one and only Patrick Stewart.
Iconic.
Yeah.
Legendary.
When he first appears on screen, you get the cue of the 1990s X-Men animated music, like do-do-do-do. Like, yeah. And
what is he? He hits it with we should tell him the truth. Because at this point, they're all trying to tell Doctor Strange is still trying to convince them of Wanda and how evil she is, but they're all convinced of how evil Doctor Strange is. But he's confused because he says, but wait a minute, I thought in this universe I was good. What do you mean? I gave my life to Thanos. How am I bad? And they're all like, well, you didn't, you actually didn't do that, but you did, because they still didn't want to tell him the whole truth yet.
And so Dr. Xavier, and I mean, even though he is awesome, in the bulkiest hover chair I've ever seen.
Yeah, wasn't digging that. Wasn't loving that. Yeah. Not at all. It was yellow.
I mean, yellow can be cool, but like if it had like, I'll say this, if it was like a dark blue, like a navy blue, and then it had a yellow X across the that would have been sick.
Yeah, anyway, wasn't digging that.
Anyway, so he says we should tell him the truth, and he explains that this version of Doctor Strange, in an effort to defeat Thanos, willingly corrupted himself with the Darkhold. And he explained to them, and they worked with him to help him fight the corruption for a little while, and they killed the six of, or what was it? So, sorry, the five of them, I think. No, Doctor Strange. Yeah, five of them, sorry. They kill Thanos, just like the 5 or 6 of them, and even after they've done that, Doctor Strange realizes, of their universe, realized that a line was crossed. So
because he created an insurgent.
Yes, I forgot. His possession of the Darkhold caused an entire universe to collapse within itself, which, they called in insurgents, and they decided that he had just caused too much damage, and so Black Bolt walks up to him and whispers, "I'm sorry." And because of his power, his voice has the strength to basically kill anyone that he speaks in the presence of, or in the direction of. So that is how this version of Doctor Strange fell, and he was killed, and they made it appear as though, he unfortunately died while defeating Thanos, because this version of the Illuminati is very clearly controlling, the narrative that is shown to the public. And
which might have been a callback to what people feel are the real Illuminati doing. So that might have been what it is. It's like they control, like you said, the narrative of how events go, how certain funds are distributed, because I think they mentioned it, how they allocate their resources. So they're kind of like in charge of everything in this universe.
Yeah, and honestly, even in the comics, they have always been in charge of sort of the narrative. Did you know that, how that Thor Ragnarok is sort of a take on the Planet Hulk storyline?
Yeah.
So in the original comic books, the Illuminati are who shot the Hulk out into space because they decided that he was just too much trouble, so they send him in a spaceship and send him off to space, and that's how the Planet Hulk storyline comes across. And so afterwards, when the Hulk is eventually able to come back to Earth, he is like, no, the Illuminati are dicks, and he starts to plant seeds, which eventually causes the group to break apart. But yeah, so even in the comics, they have this. They like to play God. That's a good way to say it.
That's a very good way to put it. Yeah, for sure.
And so, as they're about to deliver judgment, security is breached, and then
the camera show Wanda was the breach.
The camera shows that Wanda has breached the premises. She is making a beeline for America, and as she destroys an Ultron head, and it looks like she's covered in blood, but I found out it's actually like oil from the thing, but it looks so much like blood.
I think that was supposed to be a callback to like Carrie or something like that. That's the vibes I got. I got Carrie vibes, Stephen King Carrie vibes.
Yeah, and so she is stopped momentarily by Black Bolt, Captain Carter, Ms. Marvel, and Mr. Fantastic, and Mr. Fantastic is trying to reason with her, and he explains that he has kids, and she says, "Oh, well, is their mother still alive?" And he goes, "Yeah," and then she goes, "Okay, good, then they'll have someone to watch, then they'll have someone to look after them," which is the start. I was liking the movie up until this point, I'm going to be honest with you. This is the start of me being like, because I felt like that was an overly cruel line, in the sense of, again, bringing back Vision. She created her kids with a father in mind, so it seemed out of character for me in at least that moment that she would have been so okay with being like, okay, cool, I'll just half orphan these children. Like, I felt like that was a little
out of bounds. And then another action scene, which wouldn't even really call it that a pathetic one at that. Not to be judgmental, but that's what I'm doing. Pretty pathetic action scene. Because this Illuminati who's supposed to be playing God goes up against Wanda, and I mean we'll give you some play-by-plays of it, but the long story short of it is they just looked weak. I thought that I didn't like that the movie did this. I didn't like that the movie introduced 4 characters, potentially 4 of the strongest characters, and they just made them look weak. That 5, because we'll get into that. But action scene starts off with Reed Richards saying, "Wanda, Black Bolt here can kill you with one
whisper from his mouth."
One whisper from his mouth, and she goes, "What mouth?" And cool. No, you couldn't see his mouth, and he starts panicking, and he essentially.
So what happened was that he had already taken a breath in to be, and so I did take it as, like, a lot of people have criticized this as being like Reed Richards is the smartest man in the universe, and he gives Wanda the answer to eliminating Black Bolt. I did take it as like him being like, Wanda, we like if I'm almost being like, granted, if he hadn't gone into too much of specifics, he could have been like, Wanda, we do have the power to kill you, but that is our last resort. Like, we want to solve this peacefully. And so he no longer had a mouth. He starts panicking, and then almost by like breathing out like, his head implodes.
Yeah, he blows out his own brains.
Yeah, you see his head cave in. You see his eyes turn bloodshot. His nose starts bleeding out, and Black Bolt is dead after one line.
Yeah, yep. And then now they know they're in for a fight. Reed Richards goes ahead and tries to subdue Wanda, and hated this scene. He's gone in 2 seconds.
Yeah, she shreds him up into spaghetti, and like he starts screaming in pain, and then his head blows up, which
hated that scene.
I hated it too. I've already told you that that for me it made it seem like, okay, so now we've seen what John Krasinski can do in the role of Mr. Fantastic. And he's a weak sauce Mr. Fantastic. That's what it made it seem like. Oh, this is who he is, and he's not a good Mr. Fantastic. When it's like, no, okay, I'll say this. I'm a huge Wanda fan. I do like the fact that she killed them all. Like, or I understand that it needed to happen. But I would have. This movie was only 2 hours and 10 minutes. Give this, if you're gonna do this Illuminati, give them like a 10 to 15 minute action scene where she is picking them off one. If you want, fine, have her do the Black Bolt one in an instant to be like, oh crap, she's a threat. But then have the rest of the fight be like 10 minutes of them like working together, working smart, working hard, but she's just too powerful for them.
Yeah. So while this is happening, Doctor Strange is trying to barter with Mordo and saying, the Illuminati's going to die. You need to release me. I need to help you out. It goes back into America being panicked and Christine also being panicked. Christine's trying to get America out as quick as she can.
Yeah. During this, Wanda also quite handedly takes care of Captain Carter and Captain Marvel.
And that really pissed me off, if I'm to be honest. One, love Peggy Carter, Captain Carter. Thought she did a great job. Love the callback of, I can do this all day too. Love that, because that goes into Steve Rogers. I hated, maybe it's my bias of loving Captain Marvel. I hated how quickly she handled, Captain Marvel. Wasn't a fan of that. Didn't like it at all. I'm not a playwright, I'm not a screenwriter, but I'm just saying what it is. I wasn't a fan. As a fan, I wasn't a fan of that scene. Just wasn't.
As a writer myself, that is a trope called a curb stomp battle. Basically, and I, like I said, I am okay with Wanda winning. I'm okay with her. Like I didn't. Granted, in terms of horror elements, they die very horrifically. Very graphic deaths. Peggy Carter gets
Impaled.
bisected, like
Yeah.
with her own shield, and Captain Marvel gets crushed with a statue. And so I was okay with it. I just wasn't okay with it being a curb stomp battle. I would have loved to see more of a fight.
Then she kills all 4 of them, starts walking in, goes to get America, goes to get Christine, and all of a sudden you hear, stop. And
Wanda, stop.
And it's Professor X, and he goes into her mind, which I think that was cool. It shows a little callback of his powers. And again, it
They're
shows
on the astral plane. Mm-hmm.
and it shows Wanda terrified and afraid and covered in rubble, I believe it was.
Yeah, there's also a television screen, and you see WandaVision playing, and so that was a really cool sort of like callback.
Yeah, he's trying to get her out, and then all of a sudden the dark hold overcomes
a red cloud. Yeah,
a red cloud, and then all of a sudden his neck is snapped, and he's gone too. And then you see America and Christine are long gone. Meanwhile, Steven defeats Mordo, doesn't kill him. He just beats him up enough to be able to run away from him because he baits him and goats him into saying, like, oh, I guess you could never really beat me or something to that effect.
Yeah, like you always hated me. I bet you loved it. And
Yeah.
this version of Mordo did love his version of Strange. And so he goes, you wanted him dead. And he's like, shut up. You don't know anything.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he goes them into a fight. And he eventually is able to, in another sort of like horrific element, as Christine and sort of America are heading down this hallway, you see a shadow coming across.
It looks evil.
Yeah, it looks menacing. And then it's just Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And so he meets up with them, and they decide that they need to get to the Book of Ashanti.
Which Professor X let Doctor Strange know before he passed away that the Book of Ashanti was actually there, and that he could get it. That is the antithesis to the Dark World. It's the counter opposite. It's what you need to fight the Darkhold. And Maximoff is trying to destroy it. And so they go down this little tunnel. Again, a little creepy, horror element. She's running. He's
this
quickly.
has the most horror elements, I feel.
Yeah,
Like,
she's chasing him, and he's quickly putting things in her way, and she's just busting through the things.
Like she opens the door, and her eyes are glowing red, so demonic, and she's limping too. And I saw this as 2 ways. I saw this as the typical horror movie killer is chasing the protagonist, but also because of the limping, I almost got like a sense of like desperation from Wanda, like oh my god, like oh, I need to get these people. I need to get these people, and it really brings up my, like I said, I'll bring it more when we talk maybe a little bit more about the characters, but it really brings up my issue with Wanda in the sense that, like, I don't know, I felt like this movie could have done with maybe an extra like 30 minutes to explore Wanda's descent into from feeling guilty that she had hurt the people in Westview to a mass murder, essentially.
Wanda catches up to them, and America is fearful now. They find the book, but at this point in time, she's afraid, so that portal opens up again, and then Christine and Doctor Strange go into that insurgent world, I believe it is, and then Wanda goes ahead and takes America and brings her into World 616. And then the other Wanda is left. The one that was dream walking is left, panicked because she doesn't know who her kids are. She goes and leaves, and now it transitions into the different universes. The one where Wanda is going ahead and trying to steal the powers of America.
And this is where they reveal that Wong survived his fall, which, like I said, at least I knew immediately.
Exactly. And then this is where Doctor Strange realizes that this universe is just awful. It's terrible. Everything is dangerous, evil. So he's walking through and he's trying to find this universe as Doctor Strange. Which that's when he finds that this Doctor Strange is the one that has the Darkhold. And he's evil. And something to
he has a third eye.
Yeah, he has a third eye. And so now he has to go ahead and try to barter with this Doctor Strange because this Doctor Strange is curious to help, but under one condition. That's if he gives Christine to this Doctor Strange. Then he'll give the Darkhold because Doctor Strange needs to dream walk, which Wanda then calls him a hypocrite in a little bit because of that fact.
Wanda from 616 is trying to absorb the powers from America. And as he mentioned, meanwhile, I'll call him like Insurgent Doctor Strange and Doctor Strange, they have a music battle.
Yeah.
Which I get it. They wanted to show off the wonderful score by Danny Elfman, who did, he did a Nightmare Before Christmas. He did the original Spider-Man trilogy from Sam Raimi. Actually, it might not have been the entire trilogy, just the first couple of films. And so they have so what happens, this music battle comes to pass when some music sheets get flown into the air, and then our Doctor Strange grabs one and turns it magical, and then they have a music battle that is matching the score that is currently going on. And I know we've both said that we wanted to talk about this, and I guess now this is going to be it. So let's just get into this one.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I mean, it was like you said. I know that they were trying to show the score, but it was a little much. I thought it didn't show the true powers and the true strength of both of the Stranges. But I still think it was cool. I mean, these movies. The thing is, a lot of people are critical on these movies, but the truth is, these movies are multi-million-dollar movies, and they're good movies. So they're great for entertainment. So I know a lot of people are criticizing them and things like that, but they're still good movies.
Yeah, so this was a beautiful use of diegetic sound, which if you're not really well versed in film lingo, diegetic sound is like noises that come sort of within from the film that you hear in the soundtrack. And so this, because they're creating it, I guess you could say this is the ultimate diegetic sound. And I felt that I know that this has been polarizing, the music battle. I found it polarizing myself. I thought it was good. I thought it was a little funny. It was starting to bring us down from those horror elements that we saw. So it was bringing a little bit of a more joyous tone to the film. But I was also why is this the first time that we're seeing Doctor Strange do this? Why has he never done this before?
Yeah, I think with the elements and everything that was going on and the way that the film was, I thought it was a little silly. I think that's with the way that the film had gone to that point, and with the fact that he's face to face with an evil counterpart, the most evil counterpart that he's come across with, that it just, to me, I thought it was a little silly. But again, as previously stated, these movies are great. I mean, we can sit here and bitch about them, but truth is, they're not bad movies. They may have bad sequences at times, but
yeah. And the truth of the matter is that I similar to you said, I try to never call a story a bad story as a writer myself. However, writing is a very heavily collaborative process, meaning that you can always offer sort of feedback, constructive feedback. And I would say that in this particular term, if I were to try to offer constructive feedback, I would say that if they were set on using Danny Elfman's score to score this battle, to have it be part of it, maybe, as you said, even though it came across as a little silly, maybe have the notes be a little bit more jarring. Maybe have them be a little bit more horrific, as if like the stakes are being raised that, if Doctor Strange doesn't defeat this one and get a handle of the Darkhold, Wanda is going to win. And so I feel like that might have been a way to sort of improve upon this scene if this is what they were dead set on. But anyway, as you mentioned, these are always going to be nice movies. These are always going to be well put together, well acted. I'll say this: no matter what, all the actors in this film gave it their all, and it was amazing performances that helped draw you into the story.
Couldn't agree more. He gets the upper hand on this Doctor Strange. Our Doctor Strange gets the upper hand on this Doctor Strange. Shoots him out of the Sanctum Sanctorum. He falls on some metal gate.
It's like a metal rebar gate, and Christine Palmer like runs up to him, like being like, "Oh my gosh!" And then the third eye appears, freaks her out.
Yep. And then Wanda is trying to extract
the powers from America.
Yep, America. Then Strange gets the Darkhold, and he's going to try to get into this universe now, back into where America is and back into where Wanda is. Christine, pissed off, is like
she's upset that she's like, "Oh, you're exactly like my Strange." And sort of another callback. Sorry, we forgot to mention two callbacks. One of which is this: Christine at one point says to Doctor Strange, "You are always the one who had to hold the knife." And so again, bringing up that fact that in every universe, Doctor Strange is unfortunately just too egotistical to make it work with Christine. But then also the answer. So at one point when they're trying to get into this sort of like room that holds the Book of Ashanti, it has a lock on it. And it ends up being the watch that Christine gave him that's able to unlock it. And so she's mad at him, saying like, "Oh gosh, you're just like my Strange. You're going to be corrupted." And he says, "No, the reason I got corrupted was because I was doing it alone. Now I'm going to have you to help me." And he knows he's about to cross a line. So he says, "I'm going to need you to be there to help me when they come after me." And she's like, she doesn't know what he means. And it's because she goes, you can't dream walk. There isn't a real you. There isn't a live you on your Earth. And he goes, "Who says it needs to be alive?" And that's when you realize that Chekhov's gun of them bearing Chekhov's body, technically, of them bearing Defender Strange is because he's now Zombie Strange.
Which is another what if callback, because there's an episode where Zombie Strange, which that looks sick too. I was all for that.
Oh yeah, the graphics on Zombie Strange were amazing. Like somehow you could still tell the natural like handsomeness of Benedict Cumberbatch was under there, but like also just like gross, like, oh gosh, he's rotting. And I don't know that human beings decay that quickly, but
yeah,
maybe if they die from magical means they decay that quickly. I don't know.
Yeah, half his face was off. You could see his molars and his cheeks. Yeah, it was pretty gnarly, pretty intense. So he goes ahead, and now he's trying to fly over to where Wanda and America is, and he gets stopped by these little demons, and they're trying to stop him, and they're saying to him, "You crossed the line." Christine in that universe is also fighting off these demons. I'm going to just skip over that. I thought that was a little silly. Yeah.
In my head, I was thinking if they had taken like, because I want to say it lasted like, this sequence maybe lasted like 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, I thought way too long.
Yeah,
for
if they took like the 5 minutes from here and again put it into the Illuminati sequence, there you go.
Yeah, so we can just skip over that. Christine is fighting them off, beats them, but it was just a little silly. Then Doctor Strange kind of comes into his wits and understands he has to use these to help him beat Wanda. So he possesses them, and now they become his cloak. And he goes ahead, and he's now fighting them. That's where Wong is slowly climbing up. Wong goes ahead, takes out a couple of those big
We didn't mention the big rocky guys.
Yeah, I don't even know what they...
At Mount Wundagore, like, it was almost like these, there was like 4 huge...
Like worshippers almost. They worship.
Yeah, so eventually... we didn't mention... we didn't mention that. We didn't mention that there were like these 4 like huge rock figures that were sort of... they were standing post of like the Scarlet Witches, and she called it like her throne.
Yeah.
And so they are... So those 4 notice Zombie Strange coming, and then as they're about to try to like hinder him, Wong like shoots a spear into one of their heads and like throws him off the thing. So again, I want to say, I do think that like Mulan is the Disney princess with the highest body count. This film, besides like Thanos' snap, I do think this film has like the most like on-screen like death, like dying in it.
Yeah.
Or at least the most gnarly deaths. But so Zombie Strange sort of arrives at Mount Wundagore in Wanda's throne. He is sort of like, he is able to sort of like hold Wanda, I think, for a little bit with like a spell, or him and Wong are able to hold Wanda with a spell for a little bit. And he goes over to America, and she finally goes, okay, I get it. I'm not getting a hold of these powers. You can take them from me. It'll kill me, but you have to do what you have to do. And because this our Doctor Strange is shown to be the most caring or the most selfless one out of all the ones that we've seen so far, he
said no.
He says no. He wants there to be another way. So he gives her a pep talk to sort of be like, you can control it. You can control it. And
then he says, and beat this witch, which I also think was another beat this bitch. Like,
yeah. And it was kind of getting you pumped up. And so Wanda and America almost have a little bit of they have like I want to say like a 30-second fist fight where like America, because America is shown to be stronger than most teenagers her age,
but she just doesn't know how to control it.
Yes. So she's punching her, and so
she opens up one portal that almost looks like hell.
Yeah, she opens up a portal that looks like hell, and she's trying to get Wanda to like in there to close it on her, and Wanda's too powerful, so she goes and so America realizes Wanda is too powerful. No matter she can't beat her in a fight, so she decides, you know what, I'm gonna give you what you want, and she takes her to a universe where Billy and Tommy are. I
think it was that same universe.
Yeah.
That she
3838. Yeah.
That she dreamwalked in the other one because
this Wanda had like scars,
had the cuts and the bruises all on her face. Yeah.
So she brings her to Earth 838, and she sees Tommy and Billy, and she calls out to them, and then they see her dressed up in like this in the Scarlet Witch garb, and they're like, "Mom, Mom!" and they're freaking out, and their Wanda comes, and she gets taken out by Scarlet Witch, and then Scarlet Witch like walks up to them, and she goes like, "No, I'm not gonna hurt you. I love you," and she just sees the terror in their eyes.
She sees that, but she became a monster.
Yeah,
that she's a monster.
And they're in this universe, her children are now like terrified of her, and it didn't matter what she say. They were like, "No, you will hurt us." And so she finally concedes. Scarlet Witch just falls on her knees, and you can just see the agony on her face, like what the heel realization of what have I become is so haunting. And then Wanda 838 walks up to her and says, "It's okay. They'll be loved." And Scarlet Witch kind of realizes that, yeah, my Tommy and Billy are gone, but at least in every universe, I know that there's a me that loves them. And so she brings them, so they go back to Earth 616, and Wanda decides it's time to eliminate the corruption of the Darkhold. So using some sort of like ritual, she's able to destroy the Darkhold on every single universe, because like a callback to what a callback to the first talk she had with Doctor Strange. He knew that at the end of the day, she was always going to do the right thing.
And then from there, America opens up another portal, and she's able to take Wong herself to the area where Stephen Strange is right now, and where he was dreamwalking. And then Wanda collapses the little ancient tomb that she was, or her throne as she called it, and they were able to go ahead and get rid of it, and she was able to then move on and pass. Presumably, she's dead. Presumably.
Yeah, I think that's what they're trying to get at, is that she's dead, but honestly, I don't believe it for a second. I think that obviously she's going to be back, just because we still have a lot of material that I think we need to get through.
Yeah.
In terms of Wanda's story, but we'll have to wait and see for what the next sort of thing is. But wrapping up the film, so Doctor Strange fixes his watch after leaving it broken for so long, and he fixes it, he repairs it, and he goes out walking, and it's beautiful, and then suddenly you hear some heavy metal kicking up, and then he falls down onto his knees, and then you see a third eye appear on his forehead. And then that's essentially kind of, there's a post-credit scene that kind of is setting up Doctor Strange 3, which sees the introduction of Charlize Theron into the MCU as Clea, who is sort of the female Doctor Strange.
Yeah. They get married in the comic books.
Yeah, his wife.
But prior to that happening, he does profess his love to Christine.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I did forget about that. Yeah, so he does profess his love to Christine, but in kind of, like I said, nailing home the concept that no matter what, they're not meant to be.
Yeah.
On any universe. And I think that there's definitely some semblance of like truth to that, where sometimes we feel like no matter what we try, just sometimes some things just aren't meant to be. And honestly, yeah, these were like the main messages, I feel like, of the film, of like fate, sort of like I want to say mental illness because of Wanda. That's like a huge theme.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but yeah, no, that was essentially Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
So 1 out of 10, what would you rate this film?
I've been telling people, it isn't what I'm looking for in a Marvel movie. Granted, I am a fan of horror. I would give it a 7 out of 10. 7.5 out of 10.
I was going to say 6.7. 6.7 out of 10. That's where I'm at. Not that it's bad. Still think it's a good movie. 6.7 out of 10. That's what I give it. Still like it. Still recommend you watch it.
Yeah, I will say this. This is the first Marvel movie that I do feel like I would, just because I feel like because it's not as connected to the past ones, I feel like this is one of the first ones that I could say, oh yeah, you can miss it, and I don't think that you'd be confused by the next installment.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for doing this, my brother. I really appreciate you coming on, talking the movie, breaking down the film. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I know we both enjoyed it. It was a good time, and I definitely recommend you all watch it. I think it was a good watch. I think, like I said, it's enjoyable. Go out with some friends. Go out with your significant other, your loved ones. Just enjoy the film. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. I know this is a little different than what I normally do, but my brother and I are just huge fans of it, and I know we've talked about it on the phone, and we're just going to do an episode of it and see how it goes. So thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Reyes Reflection Podcast. And as always, may you live, may you love, and may you thrive.